Okay.
Okay,
So we'll just release that to move. And that. And the girls.
Okay, so we're just going to go over the resolution 7 and 8 again. So part of the resolution number 7 confirms that the Tairua-Pauanui Whenua Board continues to support the construction of a skate park in Tairua. 8 approves that the Tairua Skate Park project development plan commences at the earliest opportunity and is progressed as quickly as possible.
And I just add that we can't really.
We can't approve, sorry, we
Support this or. Support.
okay.
More supports.
Simple as that.
Yeah, so in comment referring to the chair, that is the most important part of this whole discussion, is that if we do revoke these last decisions by the community board, that we do move this process forward as fast as possible, in the understanding that this is an important project for the community. We've been on this since 2016, we've got skin in the game, we want to see this thing completed. So let the discussion begin.
Is there any further discussion?
No. Kind of had it, really, isn't it?
Sorry?
We kind of had it.
Yeah. So I put the resolution, all those in favour? Oh, I'm over in a second, please.
Yep.
Put that to the vote, all those in favour?
Aye.
Yes,
Abstain, please.
abstain. Motion carried, thank you. Okay, yes, let's get on with it, do it.
Very possible.
ASAP. 4.2, Tairua-Pauanui bus transportation proposal.
The whole council wants to get it done.
Can I have a mover and seconder?
Happy to move.
Yeah.
4.2, is it?
4.2, yes, the Tairua-Pauanui bus.
Can I speak to this?
Certainly, you've been involved a lot in it, Terry.
I have. This came an approach from the regional council's our area representative, Dennis Pear, who was providing an opportunity to have 50% funded by the transportation government and 50% by the community. We looked at two options, one via Tairua through to Thames, twice a day, 1 day a week, and one via Wharekatā through the Waihi, 1 day a week, to 2 trips per day. A concept was put together, looking at a pickup bus and a delivery bus that's in the presentation that we think that could be done in one bus. I've done some discovery work with this and spoken to Steve at Tairua Buses. I don't know if you're aware of him, he runs bus service.
Yeah.
He's very keen to think that he could get into this and be part of his world. I don't know, that's up for discussion, but he's thinking that this would be a way to keep his service going and keep it alive. But yeah, like I said, I don't know his history. So, but I just think it's there's support from Whangamata for this, and it's really in front of the board now to see if they support it. I think it'd be great to do it for a year trial and see how effective. Dropping into all those communities, Honeymoon, Poetry, Tairua, Pauanui, and our Hikawai, these opportunities to pick up and grow the business. So I support this 100%, and just like to open that discussion for the board.
We do have options, you know, in Tairua now with buses coming through. I don't know how this, but I'm really.
They would sit down and work it out with them. If it doesn't work, they would obviously come back and take it. It's really just a concept to get some traction on. It's going to have a piece in the paper for the next couple of spreads to, get feedback. We've already had good feedback today.
And I read the one there, I mean, Thames is running into a bit of headwind, isn't it?
Well, I've been just additional funding recently to support this.
Yeah, so it's not getting used.
Yeah, get used, yeah. I've also got a taxi service there, we just looked at recently, is that right?
Is it the taxi service running it?
So through the chair, there's an existing taxi service and you're the taxi service tendered for the contract. So that would be the only thing that I'd add to the discussion that's going on here is that if this was to move forwards in any way, the process would be, it would go to a tender process, so it wouldn't be negotiate.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see you negotiate with a local provider for them to have the contract. You'd have to go out, the rules that under regional council and NZTA, which you need to go through a competitive process and offer it to the market. So that's just a slight point to throw into the
absolutely.
conversation.
Yeah. I was just bringing the fact because he in town was keen to get involved. So,
Mhm. The other thing, of course, is our town, our people, our community. I mean, are they aware?
Well, I'm getting phone calls from certain people, but obviously putting it out there in the public arena is really important. So
Well, it is if we're going to feed some money on it.
The other thing you need to think about too is the fact that with Tairua and Waihi being part of this, nobody's spoken to Heritage District Council to see about them helping fund this as well. We are going to be,
Dennis Tagg has spoken to them.
okay, so that's not staff.
No,
Yeah.
that's not. Not that I'm aware of anyway.
Well, I'd certainly love to know how our ratepayers would,
My biggest concern.
what they were thinking about this.
I think the thing to consider is that it is funded proportionally by the ratepayers. Also, there's a fee for those who want to travel on it that are under 65, but over 65, Gold Card is free. So it's offering an opportunity for those who, at the senior end, to get transportation if they need it. And there is certainly some support for it out in the community, and it's a way to offer that transportation option for people who don't have the facility to travel. I think it's a good community project. It's worth a trial.
Yes, well, yeah, it is worth a trial, don't you worry about it. It's one or two places like Pauanui, you're not on the main road, so to speak, so
They would go into.
it's got to come in and go out and whatever. So, but it's got to go out there, the public first, and get some reaction.
My comment is that the discussions need to be had with Heritage District Council first to see what impact it's going to have. I mean, you've got the costings here at the moment split between Tairua-Pauanui and Whangamata ratepayers. As I said, this also involves ratepayers from the district, from a different council, which needs to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, one of the deal is they don't, if it's only Pirital. So if Pirital don't want to be part of it, or that they can come into Whangamata and get on the bus here in the country, but it's up to them. It's only Pirital, it's only a courtesy thing going past, really. But even to talk to Eric.
It looks like that Waikato patch, yeah, not paying it.
So that's.
They manage it through the New Zealand Transport.
So through the chair, regional council has the function to provide and coordinate public transport, but they don't fund any of it. So the funding for the Thames one is via Waikato, NZTA and the Thames Community Board.
Yeah, they just source that. So that hence it's come from NST because of that.
It doesn't make good. To me, it doesn't make good business sense. Your costs are 133,000. Your income at 10,000. It's a big deficit.
Yeah, it's split halfway.
Yeah, but that's still very.
I don't think it's ever made to be profitable, but the idea is to try and make it work and then see how profitable it will be. I don't know.
Well, I'd like to add a third part that we consult. I mean, I think it needs consultation with both communities. If we're looking at hitting them in the pocket to whatever degree, I think they need to know.
Yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't be putting my head's been on the block for a while now, so I'm not going to further extend it. Oh.
I think we need,
I can feel a knife in the back of the neck.
we need a bit more detail, I think, on our approximate, our costs and all that type of thing. I know they're there, but I mean individual costs.
So through the chair, I think Eileen's done a good job of pulling this report together, and there's some points that she's noted under the funding section, you know, and that none of the other agencies have money in their long-term plan to follow this up. So I think personally, as a staff view, that Eileen's done a good job about putting in a resolution to then talk to HDC and see what's happening with them. I think you've just got to be careful the way you move it forward, that you don't raise expectations, go out to the community and say, do you want this? Potentially it might not even be feasible, and the other agency, NZTA, might not even put the money forward. So you've just got to, I think you've just got to take your time and work through it properly, would be my advice. And I think if you go with the resolution that Eileen has put forward, I think that does move it forward. Discussions will be had with HDC and see what's happening in that space, and you can kind of move it forward with logical steps without rushing up to the community and raising expectations unnecessarily.
So once those discussions have been had, you can come back to the board, and then if heritage, we can go on from there and do consultation. But this is the first step.
All right, so what's the second step?
Well, it depends what current district councils say, really.
Input.
Well, it's only Ferrital. It's a little wee town on the way. They don't want to get involved with it. It's just the buses going past.
But it's a Hauraki District Council, so it's still going to have those discussions with that district council.
If they want to be involved, absolutely. But I just want to know what phase 2 is happening.
So phase 2, I think you'd need to have more discussions wider with what Kotahi NZTA, because for them to fund anything, you would need a business case. And so that's what the Thames service went through. So you've got to go through and do that process before you can actually work out whether it's feasible or not. That will tell you whether it's feasible or not. Then you've got to go through the step of going to what Kotahi NZTA to see if they actually then will accept and move that forward. So there's quite a bit of work to do before you get to the stage where you want to go out and start talking to your to the community, but unnecessarily raising expectations.
You're trying to gauge interest.
Yeah, so through the you can gauge. No, correct. You can gauge interest. Yeah, it's just about being very careful the way you have those conversations.
So
We've already got the high track.
Tweaking words here.
Yeah.
Just.
Is Dennis T not consulting with NZTA?
I don't know, sorry. Yeah, I don't know what he's done.
Dennis Teague hasn't spoken to me about that.
He did present to us.
It didn't say last year.
To us, that's what I'm saying, does he present to NZTA and see if they'll actually fund it?
Well, those are discussions that we need to have.
Right, so the suggested resolution is that we receive the Tairua and Pauanui bus transportation proposal report dated 4th June. 2, decline to support the proposal at present and request the district manager to engage with the Hauraki District Council in respect of its support for the proposal and report the matter back to the community board. Yeah, so, I'm gonna put it, I mean,
Second that.
we're gonna, are we in favour or are we not in favour?
So, what are you gonna say?
Are you in favour of this resolution?
Yes, it's good. Have a look at it.
Close talking about it at this stage.
Okay? Gary?
Look, I'm here to support what you guys do, so I'll just raise it. It's been around for a while, hasn't been tabled and discussed, so you're doing that right now.
I want to confirm that Councillor Walker's happy that he's moved that. Yeah, he.
I would expect this, if we got it right, that this would be added for an annual plan for next year, if we got it right. I don't know how long the consultation go on for this, but that would be my idea.
Councillor Walker, you are the mover for that motion.
All right.
I just wanted to make note that you are the mover for that motion. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
I'm a mover of what motion?
For that motion that declines to support, and I just want to make sure you feel comfortable with that.
Well, I would have thought just to defer it until they had a discussion with clients. That's whatever words you want, it's up to you.
Are you moving the motion or not?
You had it moved.
Yeah.
And we had a,
It's
we,
only should have been-
Sorry,
Check
amended.
that.
I didn't amend it.
no, we haven't
No,
amended
no,
anything.
so I mean, it's the same as what's in
We were looking at it, we haven't amended.
I'm a bit lost now, sorry. So what's the motion? Read it out, please.
motion is. Receives the Tairua-Pauanui bus transportation proposal, report dated 4th of June. We could change the second part from decline to support the proposal at present to defer the proposal at present and request the district manager to engage with Hauraki District Council in respect of its support for the proposal and report the matter back to the community board.
Happy to move it.
That way.
So that's the third. So take out the next decline to support and change it to defer the proposal.
What burn you?
So we're gonna, there you,
And that's what I-
well, you have to move in the second, I have to that.
Yeah, oh,
All in favour? Aye.
Moving on. 5.1, properties and.
Call on the line?
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm here if you have any questions.
This is the Tairua Community Hall renewal.
Correct. It's just a fairly standard renewal based on their original lease.
Okay, and the resolution is that we received the right of renewal and rent review for the Tairua Community Hall dated 2nd of June. And 2, recommends the council grant the right of renewal to the Tairua Community Hall Society Incorporated for 2 years from 1 June 2020 to 31 May 2022 for the land and buildings, including the annex at 210 Main Road. Tairua at the community organisation rent fee of $350 plus GST per annum. So, a mover and a seconder, please.
So where's how the drinks?
24.
I'll do that.
Any discussion?
Yeah, so is the hall going to be affected by the bridge if the bridge gets replaced?
That is a good question. I do not know the answer to that, but I can look into it for you.
So through the chair, there's no way that they'll know at this stage whether the hall's going to be impacted because they're still working through what their options are around the bridge. There's my understanding. What Kotahi and ZTA are still looking at condition of the bridge, options around different, single, double laning, all those kind of things. None of that's been decided. No decisions have been made as far as I'm aware. So I think at this stage, it's very hard to know which way it will go. So
Thanks, Bruce.
Any further discussion on it?
River.
Will not get a seconder?
Didn't hear the other.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris?
Chris.
This is the seconder. Any further discussion? No, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you all.
Thank you. 6.1. Work program.
good morning, community board. I'm happy to take any questions on the work program. Things are starting to wrap up, obviously. We've got just a couple of days left in the financial year, but everything seems to be moving forwards generally. So happy to take any questions.
One question, will we be finished?
Apart from one on there, yes. Yep. Right.
Pretty points all done and dusted, I understand.
Yep, getting there, getting wrapped up. Yep.
I can see so.
It can't be used at the moment, at low tide.
So,
Just the, so when I say wrapped up, I mean the completion of the project and the component reporting and all that stuff.
Ah.
So, just all that final stuff that we have to do.
I see the waterman still hanging on. And rough.
That's it. More clamps on it, we're going to talk about that.
I think the sand is disappearing, Greg. I've been told the sand is disappearing.
Is it? Go on, then. I'll take your word for it.
Well, yeah, I think it's WRC, but I understand.
There's nothing on there with respect to roading, is there? Gallagher Drive, man. It's abysmal.
Yeah, it's moving forward though, that project, isn't it? I know that's taken a long time.
Well, it's opened up again now.
Gone backwards.
It's really turned back.
Yeah, okay.
And it's 2 weeks ago and there's been nobody back to repair it.
Yeah, I haven't got an update on that, sorry for you, but I can find out if it will know.
And if you could,
Yeah, so.
Go.
abysmal job.
Yeah. Bit of a hiccup on that. Any further comment on the green program?
I've got one about the beach nourishment, but I'll keep that from the members report, because it's not on here. Is that what you like it? Bruce?
What was that, sorry, about the beach nourishment?
Well, just that, what Bob raised in the meeting, they do have a consent for moving sand. You know what that number is?
So through the jet, you talked about sand on the beach. It's a very small number from memory. It's quite a small volume of sand that can be
So
moved.
he's asked to get that increased several times, that number, so they can move the sand around Billy Point back onto the ocean beach.
Yeah.
Does that go back through TCDC or WRC?
WRC, so the consent is with the regional council, so we'd have to go back through a consent process, possibly even go for a new consent process. So you can vary certain conditions of consents, but if it's the kind of the main condition, you often can't vary a volume of sand that can be moved. You've got to go into a new consent application. So I don't know exactly the details of that one.
So what would you suggest? You suggest that the board make note of that he be informed that go to regional council and raise this? How would you expect to deal with his concerns?
So I know there's been a number of meetings, and my team, my staff have been to a number of those meetings with the public regarding some of this stuff to do with the sand and the erosion and the nourishment and all that sort of things. From my understanding, there's, as Brenton mentioned, the shoreline management plan is where a lot of the stuff is being dealt with. And then obviously urgent stuff can be dealt with urgently if required. But I think a lot of what we're discussing is actually wrapped up in some of that shoreline management plan project. A lot of it is around making sure if we're doing stuff, we're making the best use of the money and we're not just throwing money away, pushing small volumes of sand up against the gyms, which is then going to get stripped out by the next weather event. So it's kind of a bit of a balanced approach to it. I know that's not a great answer for your question, but yeah, it's not that straightforward.
So under the 400K that's just been released to upgrade the storm damage, can they go and move that sand without meeting the consent requirements?
So there's rules around what you can and can't do. So we need to be working with the regional council before we start rushing in and moving sand around. So I know my team are working on that project, that process at the moment. They're organising a meeting this week with the different parties who are involved. We are in communication with Coast Guard around the situation, so they're well aware of where things are at. They've got contingency plans in place for their boat, for call-outs, those kind of things. So
For the rescue boat?
Yeah.
The biggest hassle I can see with that, they're talking about moving up to the waterways as a temporary thing, but that makes an awful long way from the bar.
It does.
If somebody's laying upside down in the boat with it and had a bang on the head, which they quite often have.
Yep. So this is not a unique situation that we've got though. This has happened many times before. So not recently, but this is not just a brand new issue that's come about. So there is an issue, for like an hour either side of low tide. It's not all the time. So it's 24 hours a day they can't get out. So yes, there is a risk there. They've got contingency plans in place. We're working with them on what we can do. Our resource consent is for dredging the channel. It's not for moving sand around in the area where the sand currently is. So that's why we would need to be working with the regional council, which we are talking to the regional council about what
Regional council have the consent.
they're more
I think
likely
they
to.
hold the consent.
Yeah.
And they liaise with.
Yeah.
Council.
I would say so. So like I say, my staff at the moment are organising a meeting to catch up with the different parties and get them all around the table so that we can.
Are you going to do that?
Yes, yes, we can actually define the boundaries of responsibilities of
Right,
who does what.
Yes.
These things are,
today.
yeah, these things are always, they're always a little bit fraught, around responsibilities crossing over the two levels of local government, which I know is frustrating for people.
So will that happen in the next week, couple of weeks, will it?
Definitely, yeah.
It's historic, I've lived here for 50 years, it comes and goes.
If they can't leave the late weekend, can I put your phone number on the end of the wharf?
And I'll put yours on, and then you can tell them my number, which I'll change by then.
Okay, now we look at 6.1, the resolution that we received the community visit work program update. Move and second, please. All those in favour? Aye. No, sorry, action schedule. Action schedules. Everything? Resolution is that we received the Tairua-Pauanui Community Board Action Schedule report dated 21 April 2021. Move and second, please.
Yeah, I'm going to move.
Yeah.
Yep, I'll second.
Yeah. Any discussion?
Park, an update on that, please.
So through the chair, so you're talking about the one by the
Surf.
surf club?
We're going to do a trial area there for a surf.
Surf.
Have they done anything?
I don't think they've done it yet, so I understand it's moving forward. They are going to do the trial as discussed, but nothing's happened as yet.
Then by the surf, wasn't it?
I don't know. I have to go and have a look. I haven't been there recently, so.
We're talking about this trial, bollards and, this Jamie's trial.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
That I understand has got some backing now from the residents.
I believe so. Yes, I believe that. Yep. People can understand and see the value of doing a trial with different ways of dealing with it. It's not one way to deal with it. So, yeah.
And the other one, I've through the chair, if I can, is just the staff report back on the request for service of vegetation control of the intersection of Tairua Lane and Greenview Road. Has that been done?
Well, Jim and I went for a drive down there on our way and it's certainly like it's been done.
Has been done.
And just one other that was raised a while ago was the trimming of the trees down that, I think why that, I can't remember the name of the road. The dirt dusty road that goes out there. Yeah. Is any work done out there?
Yes, so they have done tree trimming out there. I don't know when they would have recently gone out there and done it. From when are you referring to, Terry? How recent ago?
I think it was meetings ago, there was a request to get that done.
Okay, I'll go back and find out, but I know they do it, fairly regularly anyway, so I'll just double check and see how it's that.
The other thing there, of course, is the Pahutakawa tree. Place at Paku. That's closed, which is good. Good. Action required there. Seems to rear its head every now and then.
So just through the chair, what was the result of that? They just not going to do anything. So they were talking about putting it out onto the road, or up on making the road a one-way road, go around it.
Yeah, no, there's nothing planned that I know of. Nothing planned. No. Leave it there, leave it to. Right. Too controversial. Okay, any further discussion? And we're moving that report. In favour? Aye. Against? Members' reports. Who wants to lead off?
Been very quiet months, really. An awful lot of conversation about the Jackal Park, as you'd expect. Came over the other day and had a look at how close the outlet to the drain down on the beach. I'm very pleased to see that it had been opened up. And that seems to have made quite a big difference to Flum Creek. Yes. You have to do that. It's probably worth having a look. But it seems to be staying open and it seems quite good. Because the whole process of that getting resource consents and it's become a bureaucratic nightmare. And a costly one too. We spent 23 or 25 grand on it. Actually achieved absolutely nothing so far. Then I went with Warwick to the council meeting the other day and various members of the council. And that's about me really.
Oh, me?
Jump around the table.
There you go. Just a few points, not much this week either. Had a call from Kath Whiteman, who came over to Bongatara and had a chat about her position. She's standing for the election, for the elections for the community board. I haven't heard from, is it Mark Flowers, the other guy? Yeah, haven't heard from him. But yeah, so it was good of her to come over and have a bit of a discussion about how things worked in this region. I wish you well. The election's coming up this month, I think it is. The name of the ward is still up for discussion. Paradise Coast versus South East Ward. They need to know by August sometime before it goes back to the electoral election committee office. So, I can't remember his name. Sofsky, that's it, thank you. So it's Bongatara's pretty keen to run that way, but it's you guys to think about it and make a decision and come back to this night. Ten transportation plan, the reserve management plan. Have we done the Tairua one? Is that been signed up? No. Sand refurbishment. The long-term plan. We will discuss that sometime about the planning going forward for the next 3 years. Is there some discussion that comes to forward?
In the workshops?
In the workshops, yeah. That's right. And Holland Close, will you just give us a little update on Holland Close?
Yeah.
I haven't got to those meetings recently, yeah. So the WRC consent's still not through. So yeah, I hope I don't spend all that money on that. So there we go. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an on and off few weeks with this storm, what's been on. But first off, I attended a meeting, I believe it's called Environmental Society, the Tairua Valley Environmental Society. Tairua, of course. And I was absolutely staggered how much work those people put into the place. Absolutely, it's brilliant. All that volunteer work, what goes in, it's got to hear it. I attended a meeting of the Pauanui ratepayers, and Kennedy Park cricket pitch was raised as regards some work doing on it. Somebody wants to try and get the kids playing cricket. And I've notified Lou Mackle, so he's aware of it. I've also been brought to my attention regarding the Opper's sales room, I suppose you would call it, just at the entrance to Pauanui. They're on about moving out of that now, and there's some interest being shown at it by a few people as regards using it for offices and so forth. So
Our property team's been in contact with Lee Hopper and his working through.
yeah, yes, yep. I've been down to Holland Close several times. Mostly high wind, high tide and heavy rain. So I can't see what the problem is really, except for dredging, draining out every now and again, clearing out every now and again. Last time I went, the water was pouring down the drain, but there's nothing in the street whatsoever. And as was mentioned earlier, the dredging, what they've done out at South End is working absolutely amazingly at the moment. I was down there yesterday. Royal Billy Point seems to be having quite a bit of trouble with silting up and whatever. That's got to be sorted out. But the job's completed now, so the new wharf, it's been a bit slippy at times, and so was the other one, Pleasant Point. It's all been washed, sandblasted, or not, well, water blasted, sorry, not sandblasted. So that's been good. And what else have we got? Oh, that's just about it. But I'll repeat again, I was very, very impressed with the volunteers group that you had over at Tairua there. But brilliant work you do. Brilliant.
Harry, can I ask a question for you about Holland Place there? Did they, to Bruce, really, did they do the culvert? And we're talking about upgrading that down the road a bit further, making it bigger?
So through the chair, no, the culvert replacement's like a multi-million-dollar job, so that hasn't been done. And that when we look at the staged approach that we proposed as staff for Holland Close, that's probably the last thing to be done. So it's going to do this. The way we propose it is you do stage one, and you see what benefit you get from that. If you need to move on to stage two, you move on to stage two. If you don't need to move on, that's fine. If you don't need to go all the way through to culvert replacement, you don't.
Well, it's quite positive what Barry said in it's deal with this. That's a pretty culvert.
It is a big culvert, but yeah, the culvert has been maxed out during one event in recent times.
Just needs a bit of tidying up here there throughout the
Clearing out of the drain.
clean out the drain, yeah. Especially there's one on the south end by the car park there, the bit of a reserve that needs to clear out now. Now I can say I've been down there, heavy rain, high tide. In fact, there were king tides, and there's been no flooding. So it's, I won't charge you for the drying out of my clothes now.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Well, I've attended several meetings. I visited the ratepayers at home, and they had concerns over our board's apparent lack of a voice and representation at council meetings. I assured them that I do have a right of speaking at council should the need arise. I also advised them on our board's terms of reference regarding to our role in local community board activities. There was a discussion on a more equitable representation for Tairua-Pauanui ratepayers. And they suggested that I should or could attend some local government New Zealand meetings, not a better word, to be better informed. I did sit down yesterday afternoon and listen to the Three Waters. Drinking on that shells. But that was interesting hour or so. The Tairua Heritage Society continues with the work in progress on compiling the history of Tairua. They recently held Friends Evening in the church annex, along with the launching of Noel Langford's Tairua Lockdown and the function. It was great. It was full. There was a heap of people in there. And of course, it included a very popular live stream from Professor Michael Baker on his views about COVID. And they, of course, continue to follow the hub project progress through the council. I went out to Hikawai Hall for their AGM, and from memory, it was the same 7 people that were there 2 years ago. And they're all automatically back off the committee. A pretty tight-knit team out there. They did raise several items that they would like some council assistance on, and I have notified the area manager Eileen of these. The new toilet block, there have been some issues involving some possible improvements. These two I've handed on to Eileen for her attention. And sadly, the last thing I've seen, we've been hit with a bit of graffiti. I'm aware of the train station on top of Parku has been hit. Why they want to climb to the top of Parku and then do some graffiti up there, I do not know. And of course, one of our history, or the history plaque in the Pepe playground was targeted, and I went and had a look this morning and I see it's been removed. Yeah, that's my report. So, somebody move, we receive reports, please, move and second.
Yep.
Second. Yep, thank you. Okay. Anything else? Meeting closed. Have a lunch. Now have a workshop.
Should have got the troubadours to come in.
Yeah, they will